And hey, everybody, we're live. Welcome to this week's Facebook Ads Masterclass Power Rider. Once again, my name is Charlie. If you enjoy this type of stuff, please feel free to subscribe on YouTube or comment below if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. If you have any questions, the people here on Clubhouse, which we are live streaming at, are going to also be raising their hands. We're going to answer all of your questions in the order they come in before this weekly Power Hour Live is done. I hope you're enjoying this stuff. We're going to be covering more stuff from the latest ebook that you can find on FacebookDisruptor.com as well as inside the Patreon. This one's called Don't Fight the Beast, Facebook Best Practices 2021, Part 1, because there is a Part 2 coming very soon. So here we're going to really be diving into the learning phase. And, well, I'm just really excited because I think that's one of the most widely misunderstood and super powerful pieces of Facebook ads. So we're going to spend about 15, 20 minutes going through the learning phase, and then we're going to answer all of your questions right up until the top of the hour. With that being said, I hope you strap yourself in, pull up some popcorn, grab a coffee, hit pause if you're watching this on replay, make sure you are good to go. And then from there, let's dive into it. Once again, my name is Charlie. Let's get started. So the learning phase. Now, the learning phase is probably one of the most widely disrespected and misunderstood elements on Facebook ads. And I think it's because people do not appreciate, or they have not been taught exactly what the learning phase means. So in a very short way, the learning phase is Facebook determining their level of confidence when it comes to being able to deliver a consistent result on the back of finding individuals who will respond positively to your content. That's a very nice, long-winded style of a statement. But what's really important here that we really want to drive home more than anything is what the purpose of the learning phase really is inside of Facebook. What it functionally does for us as advertisers is basically Facebook's way of saying you can trust the results that you see here to be consistent. We now have confidence based on statistical significance around what type of result that we're going to get from people. And now this result is not just your cost per whatever it is you're optimizing towards. The result here is also how people are going to respond based on the estimated action rate. Basically, Facebook is saying, we've got a good idea based on the bounce rate and the click-through rate and the stickiness of your web page. Because remember, every ad is a web page. What you are doing inside of Facebook ads is promoting web pages. It is no different. Facebook ads and Facebook news feed is no different than Google search results. They are the exact same thing. It's just Google search results don't have multimedia, don't have a comment section. Other than that, they're identical in the way that the platforms really function insofar as how they're showing people content. So what Facebook is trying to do is say, what type of content do people have a high estimated action rate with? Because remember, Facebook's number one objective, what makes the Facebook algorithm different and what made it groundbreaking, why it was one of the most powerful machines to create intent in the history of all humanity, is that it is designed to create a positive experience for the end user. It prioritizes the end user over the person willing to pay money. Your job is to then give that end user the best quality experience. And that's what we talked about if you want to go back and see the last live where we really get into where complicated ad accounts come from, why you should never use interest groups, why there's a big liability and misunderstanding when it comes to how to prioritize, and really the importance of the ad, or in this case, your post or your content. That is so powerful. It is quite literally the most powerful thing that you have inside of your Facebook ad account is your ad. And the honest truth is that's been the most powerful thing advertisers have had forever is their ads. I mean, you're an advertiser. Your job is to utilize ads. And that is, it feels so rudimentary that sometimes it's so complex and people overlook it. And one of the biggest mistakes, when we get back to the learning phase here, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make all the time is they're saying, well, Why don't I just try to outbid my competition and get a manual bid and do all this other stuff? And it's because that's not the way Facebook works. Facebook isn't Amazon. It isn't Google. There's not a bid-born impression so that you can try to force a bad experience on somebody that ultimately becomes a liability to the success of your ad account, because you are rated on the estimated action rate of your content. You are rated very much on, do you provide the end user inside of Facebook a positive or negative experience? If you provide them a positive experience, you're going to be seen by more and more people. There's no difference in the way that Facebook figures out how much to charge you for your ads as the algorithm that goes into say how many people will see your Instagram reel. It's the same logic. If people engage with it, it's going to be shown to more people. If they don't engage with it or they engage negatively, if you're a liability to Facebook's bottom line as a business, then you have to pay more to be in the system. They reward folks that respect their business practices. They penalize folks who are a liability to those objectives. Very, very simple. Getting back to the learning phase, if Facebook can understand that yes, you are a liability, or yes, you are an asset, and they understand how to show your content to the people that are most likely to respond in a positive fashion, then they're going to tell you you're out of the learning phase, you're active. Generally, this happens around, Facebook says 50 optimization events a week. Now, that is a nice round number. It is honestly just their way of passing the buck on trying to answer it, because everybody's ad account is different. I've seen ad accounts run for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they've had dozens and dozens and dozens or hundreds of events, and they never left the learning phase. I've also seen ad accounts get out of the learning phase and like 12 conversion events. It really depends on not just that ad, not just that ad set, not just that campaign, but the history of your ad account. How vertically integrated is all of your marketing? How similar or dissimilar is all of your advertising? How much are you relying on using broad audiences versus interest targeting? If you're using interest targeting, which again doesn't mean that you're targeting, like for instance, I got a DM today on Twitter. It's like, well, why can't I just use an interest targeting for dogs? It's like, well, because people are talking about dogs, whether or not they have dogs, whether or not they feel positively or negatively about dogs. And if you're selling dog items, many dog owners don't talk about the dogs on the internet. So you're just talking to people about their level of conversation, not the sentiment. You're paying extra money to exclude Facebook from showing your ad to really good people. In that scenario, the learning phase is going to be more expensive and is going to take a longer period of time, because you're not necessarily letting that ad reach all of the best people. So the broader the audience, the cheaper the inventory, the quicker you get out of the learning phase, because Facebook is not inhibited in who they can show that content to. So basically, you're leaning into the unfair advantage that Facebook has in the marketplace. And as a result, you are letting the machine get better and better, faster and faster, so it can deliver you a really consistent result. And our ultimate objective here is to get out of the learning phase as fast as possible so that we can have a consistent and projectable result. Because if you can project it, you can measure it, you can improve it. If you cannot do any of those things, you will not get better. That is just a fundamental fact of any effort, basically anywhere. If you can't measure it, it's going to be really hard to improve. And that is something that we absolutely have to keep in mind. And if you're not out of the learning phase, that means your results not going to be consistent. It means you can't measure it properly. So if you're not out of the learning phase, then you're not going to be able to measure things properly. Then you're never going to be able to actually improve your ad account. Now, getting out of the learning phase, let's get into some best practices. And feel free, if you're on Clubhouse, raise your hand. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn on this wonderful StreamYard broadcast, thank you so much to Alex Cooper and to Professor Nez and to Daryl Eves for hipping me to StreamYard. It's funny when you're in a Clubhouse room with the guy that starts Mr. Beast and he starts to like take you under his wing and show you how to do things. Some of the tools really work. So thank you to you guys. Anyway, as an aside, so when we get down to best practices here on the learning phase, I really want to point out 4 big fundamental things. Number 1 is during the learning phase. Well, to preface this, when you're in the learning phase, your results are less stable. So your results are not going to be indicative of future performance. I got a DM today on Twitter that said, well, I'm doing some testing, and on the second day, this interest group is beating this broad. And it's like, is it still in the learning phase? It's like, yeah, okay, so you have no confidence that that's the outcome. If you're still in the learning phase on day 2, day 3, remember, we want our ads and our campaigns to be running for months or years. If you're having to set yourself up for a situation where your content, your ad sets, your campaigns, and we have to swap them out after several days, then that means that you're making decisions before you even have any idea on what the long-term impact is. And that's a reason that you have this super high level of churn of your content, is because you had maybe some good performance early on, and then you saw some bad performance, and you never let the system actually figure things out. Basically, it gets the low-hanging fruit, it learns, it goes out into the wilderness and tries to be good, and it's going to slip up. And you say, hey, as soon as you make a mistake, I'm going to fire you. And you're trying to basically run a business by firing an employee once or twice a week. And that is an extraordinarily hard way to manage an overall business. Ad sets or ads are very much just like employees. They are sales pitches. They are things that you invest in long term. So if the goal is to invest long term in these assets, which could be your ads or your ad sets. I know those two words are extraordinarily close, assets versus ad sets. If you're trying to invest in them for long-term decision-making, don't make a call around how you're going to run your business in 6 months because of what you saw on Facebook in the last 24, 48 hours. That is ridiculous. You would never do that in any other facet of business ever. Don't do it here. So, number 1, avoid unnecessary edits. And what I mean by this is any edit to the ad will create a new web page, right? So if you change a word or you change something so if you change anything in the copy, you change the landing page or literally anything, it's going to create a new web page that is being promoted because they're not editing web pages. Every single post, every single edit is a new URL. That URL is the post ID. Facebook measures the click-through rate and the bounce rate of every single post ID to understand the most effective way of delivering these ads to individuals. Every time you change the web page, it makes a new one. Every change means you have to start over from 0. So anything that you can do to avoid making changes is a good plan, which primarily means don't go in right off the bat with post ID ads as we build them all out. Start with dynamic creatives. Get some testing going. Understand what you want to invest in. And the honest truth is, you can run just dynamic creative ad sets, and that'll easily get you to $1 million a year run rate. And you can follow this big thread I have on Twitter right now. I spent 4 or 5 days explaining the finer points of that, or you can sign up for my newsletter. It'll be the first thing that we get into. DM me for more information on that. It's going to be available starting tomorrow. So first thing is avoid any unnecessary edits. It's not just to the ads, but also to the ad sets. And we'll get to that in a minute. Number 2, only edit your ads or your ad sets when you think doing so is going to make a positive change, where it's really going to improve performance. Because remember, as soon as you make an edit, you are throwing out every bit of progress and every bit of data that you've collected so far and to see success of your marketing effort. And if you're going to throw away all the work that you've done, you better be damn well confident that that's a good move for you moving forward. Because again, otherwise you're basically just starting over and over and over, time and again. And if you're starting over time and again, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to maintain consistent performance. And if you can't maintain consistent performance, then you're not going to be able to truly measure what you're doing. And if you can't measure what you're doing, then you're going to ultimately struggle, because to repeat myself again, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. If you can't improve it, then what are we even doing here? Because you're probably not going to be as good as you need to right out of the gate, and you're just going to struggle. Point number 3, set a budget large enough to get 25 to 50 conversions or optimization events within a week. Remember, people say 50 events, and I'm seeing a lot of nonsense from people who have no idea what they're talking about. Preach this idea. I saw some Chase Chappelle and some other folks who probably great people, probably really smart, nice individuals, no fucking clue what they're talking about when it comes to running Facebook ads. I've seen people say, well, it's inside the optimization window. So they're saying you need 50 conversion events in a week, which is horribly wrong. damaging and the liability of people's happiness and success. And I'm here as somebody that has talked to the engineer, somebody that has worked with Facebook for almost a decade to tell you that that is 100% false. It is over the space of about a week. What Facebook needs ultimately is enough data points to determine statistical significance for success. This means to get out of the learning phase, generally speaking, it's 25 to 50 optimization events. Now, what this means is set a budget large enough so that your ad set can get out of the learning phase. How do we do that? Well, if there's, say it's 50 conversion events a week is 7 days. So if we want to get 50 in a week and we have 7 days, let's divide that 50 by 7, one for each day. And we roughly know that we need 7 or 8 conversions on a daily basis in order for us to get out of the learning phase meaningfully with a lot of confidence. Now, you might be able to do it in half as many, and that's totally fine because that's the 25 conversion events. Let's say it's 28 conversion events. That means you need 4 per day, 28 in a week, 7 days in a week, 28 divided by 7 is 4. Now, what this means is if your target cost, if what you're selling something is, say, $25 is how much it on average costs you to sell something, then at minimum, you should be spending at least $100 a day to sell, to promote this ad set. If your average cost is $25, you spend $100 a day. You're going to get roughly 4 a day, sometimes more, sometimes less. At the end of a week, you're going to be getting high 20s, maybe low 30s if things go well. That is going to set you up for a situation where you are more than likely to leave the learning phase with decent confidence. The more you can spend, the better. The last thing that I want to touch here is budget changes. Now, we've talked about changing the ads. We've talked about how every time you make an ad change, it fundamentally changes the ad itself, because it's not just like a little tweak on the ad. You made a new web page. You're promoting a brand new web page that has never seen traffic before. Any little change makes you start from zero. In addition to this, what Facebook has done is it's figuring out, remember, our bid is our budget and our estimated action rate. The estimated action rate comes from your, the bounce rate, click-through rate, stickiness, what have you, of the web page that you're promoting, right? Which is the ad. Because remember, every ad is a web page. It has a URL. That URL is categorized as a post ID. It's the last few little numbers on your Facebook post. The other part of that equation is the budget. So if you ask somebody, let's take this into a real world example where you've got employees on your factory floor. And your employee, when you ask them to do, make me 5 things today, and they do great. And then you say, hey, look, instead of doing 5, make me 12, make me 20. Well, do you think their quality of work is going to be the same? The answer is absolutely not. So when you take your budget and you go from, say, in this case, we were talking about $100, if you go to $250 because you saw good performance on the second day, where you were not out of the learning phase, then you're going to create a lot of disruption. So let's say now you're out of the learning phase and you make a big budget change. What you're ultimately doing is you're saying, hey, Facebook, what you're doing is working. I like what you're doing. I appreciate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely screw up the math that you need to see consistent performance, because Facebook understands how to deliver you a consistent performance based on a certain amount of impressions that you're asking it to deliver, based on an amount of work that you want it to do on a daily basis. If you increase that workload by 20, 30, 50, 100%, the bigger that change, the greater the difficulty it is for Facebook to deliver you a consistent result. And as a reaction to that, Facebook will leave the learning phase, or will go re-enter the learning phase, because you've basically said that it is more important for you to increase your spend than to protect the data that you have. Now, I highly recommend you don't do that. There are cases where it does make sense. We can get down to the nitty gritty, but so 80, 90% of the time it's a bad idea. And if you're saying, well, in my case, it's probably a good idea, you're probably wrong. The exceptions to the rule are extraordinarily small and rare. It's not to try to, take any sort of a slight against anyone. I'm just saying that There are very few exceptions. It generally happens at very large spend levels. It happens because you can reset your ad account because you're getting a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen conversions in a day. And you can eat the cost of that inefficiency because you are going to be able to leave the learning phase, even if you started from zero, in a matter of days all over again. That happens. But again, I've done that because I was spending $30,000 a day, $50,000 a day, $1 million a day, things that I have done. If you're spending a couple $100 a day, then I highly, highly recommend you don't make budget changes that are over 5 or 10%. Facebook says you can get up to 20, but it's a lot better to make a 5% change a couple times a week than a 20% change day after day and then complain when things stop working. I'd rather see continuous success and have my results be compounded over time. Because also remember, success and scale does not come from greater spend. It comes from greater efficiency. And I'll leave you with that. The biggest learning piece that the biggest gain that the learning phase gives you is consistency. Consistency means you can improve. The improvement means that you get your cost per sale down. It is infinitely better for every business on the planet to get twice as many results for their investment as it is to maintain the same rate of result at double the investment. The only time where investing more money at the same rate to get more people is a good idea over reducing the cost is if you're trying to tell a story around spend. And if you're not going to investments, bankers, or if you don't have equity firms backing you, or if you're not trying to steal budget from a larger project, then that is fundamentally something that you should never, ever consider. There's nothing about you that is going to make that line of thinking positive for your end result. So that being said, that's the learning phase. I'm so glad we were able to get into that. I'm going to take a drink of my coffee. Please raise your hand if you're in the clubhouse room. We're going to answer everybody's question. No question is too big, too small, too dumb, too smart, too completely off the wall, too elementary, or too complex. Believe me, I dealt with literally thousands of ad accounts. I'm here to help you out. And if you're afraid to ask a question, there's probably somebody else watching this on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook that might also be afraid. And because you're willing to do that, because you're willing to step forward, you're going to help them out. If you are watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, please comment below and I will get to you in the order that we have everything. So I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. Clearly, I probably don't need any, but whatever. I'm going to enjoy it anyway. And I do see a hand raising Clubhouse, so we will get to you in just a second. I just need to wet the whistle because I don't think I've actually inhaled in 22 and a half minutes. Oh, all right. That's good. Okay, so let's see. All right, Clubhouse. Let's see if we can't make this happen. All right, app. We've got, first one is from Vikrant. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but I will own it. I'm going to welcome you to the stage. Hey, if you don't mind introducing yourself and then let me know how I can help while I aim this microphone down at my phone. Let's hear it.
Charlie, thanks for the opportunity. Hi, guys. This is Vikrant. I founded Advise. It's an edtech company which helps enable coaching centers in India with sales and capital. And the challenge which I'm facing right now is that the budget for all these coaching centers, since they are small businesses, is pretty small. So roughly it would be somewhere like a $500 overall budget for marketing, and they are not expecting too many conversions, but enough to kind of get a decent amount of returns. So Charlie, my question to you would be, when I have such a small budget to kind of go ahead and do marketing, what kind of marketing mix should I be kind of optimizing for to kind of solve and get them more students? If you can just help me out. And just to add to this, these are coaching centers who have a considerable amount of brand recognition in their local vicinities, and my target audience would also be around their probably a city. That's max where I'm looking at. Yeah.
Great question. And I think this helps not just coaching centers, but a lot of brands, a lot of businesses. And let me repeat the question just so you can tell me, hey, you understood it, or hey, you didn't, because I don't want to wax poetic for too long if I might be wrong. So for me to repeat this question, basically, you're asking, I'm working with a business that has a lot of local recognition, but doesn't have a lot of money to advertise. Their expectation is not to necessarily get a lot of business from Facebook, but we know that we need to be on Facebook and promoting the business. And from that, what is potentially the best path forward so that we can see results and success from our marketing efforts? Is that a fair assessment of your question?
Absolutely correct. And the key KPI over here is sales conversions. So yeah, you're right.
Got it. So key KPI is sales and conversions. I love that you got to that. And what, for everybody that is maybe not terribly hip to a lot of the lingo that we're going to be throwing around here, let me just repeat what he's getting at is the key performance indicator, what you are denoting, how you are defining success and failure is what your KPI, your key performance indicator. Now, one of the things that I'll always recommend is you get your Facebook advertising down to as few KPIs as possible. The absolute best advertisers I know, the best brands in the world, can get it down to one problem that they're trying to solve. If you invest all of your money into trying to solve one problem, then you can get that one thing out of the learning phase really quickly, measure it really easily, and improve upon it. So that being said, it sounds to me like you probably don't have the budget on a daily basis to drive enough conversions or optimization events when it comes to purchases or signups for this coaching effort. So in that way, it's probably, what's that?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So in this case, we're dealing with the situation of I can't use Facebook to necessarily be responsible for directly driving sales. How do I use Facebook to improve my business? And one of the biggest things that I highly recommend in this case is trying to use Facebook to feed another effort that is where you're getting where you can convert people more effectively. Now, this is often talked about in the terms of lead generation or in validation efforts. And I'll say that I absolutely agree with those things. And I go way, way back when it comes to lead gen on Facebook. I actually was one of the initial advertisers to use the lead gen ad unit on Facebook back when it was an alpha and I was running Nissan. But that being said, Facebook itself should always be thought of, how can I level up and increase the amount of traffic and the amount of volume I'm getting to a good business effort. So what I would say is, it sounds to me like you've got a well-regarded business that's got some money coming in, and you're looking to Facebook to scale that successful business. So what I would say is, instead of asking Facebook to make the sale, what can we do on Facebook in order to ramp up the amount of volume you're getting to your already successful sales channel? Now, maybe that is awareness, maybe that is getting phone calls, maybe that is getting emails. But to me, it sounds like the most important thing for you is more attention and trust, so that you can get actions and volume towards something that already works. So let me ask you this question. Do you know how the majority of the customers that the business currently has, how they were acquired?
Yes. See, I'll answer in two levels. First is, before we entered and started associating with them, there were more like, earlier it used to be offline meetings. Now they have converted it to online Zoom meetings. And these meetings would be across with parents and students who are interested to join. There would be organic reach outs which would be there. And these guys would just have a discussion about what they do and what is the target they are going ahead with, etc., for some competitive examinations. And then the second part to this is, since we have started with working with them, what we do is we invite students for a free demo class or a free scope or expectation alignment meeting.
Yeah.
And from there we do the conversion process either manually or maybe through some automated follow-ups over messages or WhatsApp.
I love it. So basically what you have is, you have a lead gen funnel built around a free action that then qualifies that person to reach out to you if they find value in the free action. So what I'm hearing you say is what you need to do is get Facebook better and better at driving you higher and higher quality individuals at more and more volume to this free action. So I don't know how much this free action costs for you, but it sounds to me like your best bet, instead of trying to make the sale, is to get as many of these free actions as you can get done. And if you can get them done for $25 US out of your $100 daily budget or less, then you can absolutely treat that as your optimization event, your conversion event, and just do continuous creative testing and to try to reduce the cost of that of that optimization event. And this goes for every business around the world. This doesn't necessarily just have to be for coaching in whatever country you happen to be in, whether it's Pakistan, Germany, South Africa, India, Australia, United States, Canada. It doesn't matter. The mechanics all work the same. And so what really we're getting down to is saying, if you can lower the costs of getting somebody to sign up for what it is that you're doing, it doesn't just mean that you're getting more people. What it also means is you're getting better and better at driving higher quality people. And if you get higher quality people in, because Facebook's getting better and better at getting that conversion rate up, and you're creative, your ads are getting better and better at driving people who are more interested. What it also means is your conversion rate from your website is going to go up. The conversion rate from your emails is going to go up. The value, the cost of your search marketing is going to go down, because the people that are actually interested in what you have to say are the quality of the individuals that you're talking to continues to increase. So that would be what I would absolutely focus on, is creative testing. So maybe dynamic creative campaign. I have an ebook. I'm not trying to pitch my stuff, but I do have an ebook called One Campaign to Rule Them All. It's on my Patreon. It's on the site. Check it out. If you want to go to that, DM me. I'll give you 50% off the price of the Patreon, or I can give you a link for 20% off the cost of the ebook on my site. Not a problem. Let me know. And from there, that is really designed to help you learn how to do creative testing inside of a single campaign to reduce your costs so that you can increase the quality. And it is fundamentally better for business for you to acquire more and more higher and higher quality individuals for the same price than it is to scale up your marketing budget. So anyway, I know that that's sort of a long-winded answer, but I would spend every penny I have in one Facebook campaign for the sole purpose of reducing my cost per acquisition, to getting individuals to sign up for that free event, so that your free event ultimately has so many people that you are having more of an issue of being able to address every single high quality lead than, or every single high quality individual than potentially trying to just make the sale right away. Because it sounds like there's a great funnel in place. Does that help? And please DM me if you need any other help with that.
Yeah, awesome, Charlie. I think that's exactly what I also have in mind, and I just wanted to kind of validate with you, and I think it's kind of resonating here.
Awesome.
Second, and then one thing which I had also in mind is probably I'll DM you for this, is how to automate this process. This entire funnel, so that I can now scale this up, not from maybe a 10, 15 client base to maybe a 200, 300. So
sure.
That also.
I don't know how to tell you to automate what happens after the click, because you have your own system and every system is different. What I can tell you is creative testing, where you're targeting just age, gender, and location, broad targeting. That is going to, if you're using dynamic creative against a broad audience, then you have effectively automated everything that happens on the Facebook side. Facebook should, in that situation, for you, be less than 90 minutes of work a week, other than just building ads for creative testing. You could probably run Facebook, like I said, yeah. If you go really slow, Facebook will take you a total of 2 hours a week. And everything else should be figuring out what happens after the click. And that is something that maybe we can handle offline, but it's probably so much more in depth that I don't think I can handle it necessarily here.
Sure, Charlie, got it. Thank you so much. This is really helpful.
I'm glad to be helpful, man. That's what I do. And follow me on any of the things and DM me, and I'll gladly love to help you out. Hey, look, thank you very much, man. I'm going to tuck you back down. And we got one more person that raised their hand inside of Clubhouse. And I do see somebody asked a question on YouTube, and they subscribed. I got a notification on that as well. So thank you for that. This question comes from Leo with no bio. So I'm interested to see what happens, but you probably knew, and we're going to give you a chance. Hey, Leo, introduce yourself. Let me know how I can help.
Hey, Charlie. Thanks for having me. Greetings from Australia. It's almost 4 a.m. here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know who this is. How you doing? I thought you were going to sleep like 2 hours ago. We were DMing on Twitter.
Nice. Stayed up. I thought it's worth it.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Awesome. So, my question is, I've got a client with a high-ticket item. It's like a $300 item. And the item actually attributes really poorly on Facebook, even before iOS 14. We get sales through Shopify, but I just have no idea where they're coming from. And I was wondering, how do you navigate that, through a dynamic creative or whatever? If I don't know where the actual sales are coming from, I see that the creative is spending across certain creatives, but I just don't know where it actually comes from and where to go from there.
I love it, and great question. Extremely common question, and it's a problem people have been having for a long time. It's not just iOS 14. And for everybody that is listening, let me try to just repeat this question back real quick in different words, just so that everybody can hear it, because we also have people, watching on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. They may or may not have heard you. What I'm getting your question to really be is that you have an item, it's a couple $100. Facebook attribution right now is not necessarily the best. You're not able to really see what ad drove the sale. And because of that, it has been difficult for you to optimize your marketing efforts. And ultimately, this is a problem because due to the high price per sale of the item, there's a larger and larger investment that goes into making each sale. And you have to be, you have to be more and more confident about the dollars that you're spending. So your primary issue is Facebook attribution, or the credit for who gets the sale, is kind of frustrating and difficult for you. So it's harder for you to make decisions. And based on that, you're trying to understand what's the best path forward to fix that problem. Is that more or less accurate?
Yeah, that's spot on.
Right on. Awesome. I'm a good listener sometimes. First off, I'm going to make three big statements. Number one, no digital marketing attribution is ever correct. At best, you're maybe 75 to 80% accurate. Number two, it is, if you have any amount of marketing more than just one channel, trying to do what we call bottom-up attribution is saying, I made a sale, who gets credit, is a way of thinking that will get in the way of almost any business, primarily because you cannot assign credit to any one channel or another. And that's because people have been exposed to more and more advertising, and no two customers behave the same way. And if you want to know way more about that, there's a long form video on the YouTube called Bottom Up Attribution. I think I just published it on Friday, something like that. So you can absolutely take a look at that. So I'm not going to go too deep down into that, but hey, I guess that's a shout out for the YouTube. I'm not trying to promote stuff. I'm just saying there's a 15-minute answer there, and much longer than I can give you right here. And then the last thing is, that doesn't mean that Facebook isn't useful. That doesn't mean that any attribution isn't useful. So what we need is the highest quality attribution that we can get. And we've been solving for this problem for years with what we call server to server. Now, last year, Facebook redesigned the server to server and released the new version of it as a thing called Conversions API, or CAPI, which was great to see, because it helps overcome some of the cookie issues. But that in and of itself still isn't solving the problem for a lot of individuals, because there's an inherent issue in the tracking. So what I highly recommend people do, and something that I've been doing for the better part of a decade now, is uploading my conversions to Facebook as offline conversion events that I can then pull into custom columns because it's its own custom conversion event. And ultimately you can optimize towards those. And those numbers are basically you just saying, I got a sale from this person. You upload it to Facebook and they'll match it to a view or a click. And you'll get that on every element of a dynamic creative across any ad set. Now, I've been doing this for many, many years, especially in the world of lead gen, because if somebody has a lead campaign and they want to know, well, I get leads, how many are actually delivering sales? What we would do is after they talk to a salesperson or a call center, and I started doing this in the education department. I used to do stuff for colleges to like help them with their recruitment. Back in the day, I think it was like Ashford University in 2015 or 2016. Anyway, it goes way, way back. And before that, it was test drives for Nissan back when Facebook first launched the lead gen ad unit. What we do is say, if this sale happens, we would upload it and we could tie that back to the individual event. So my suggestion here, number one, is get better data integrity by uploading these offline events, and you can automate it. I'm not going to go too much deep into it here, but there's absolutely solutions. And inside the Slack, I know you're talking about getting in there. There are articles where people have posted into that, but it's a very simple process with Google Sheets and Zapier to Facebook. People have figured it out, and a 5-minute Google will absolutely give you a better example in detail with pictures than I could do on this chat. But know that what you're looking for is uploading your events to offline conversion events in Facebook. And what this is going to do is, in addition to the CAPI, which is going to say, hey, it's a purchase, you can upload it as a like offline purchase, or you can make just a different thing. You can call it a sale, whatever. And from this, what you're going to be able to do is have your own source of truth that comes from your own internal server that doesn't necessarily run into the same issue as you will find with Facebook's attribution model, which the engineers are working on. I know it's at like 55, 60% right now accuracy. They're going to improve it. We're going to get it back up to the 80% or so that we're used to seeing. And so we're going to be fine. That all being said, that's a long-term solution. A short-term solution is to take a look and say, well, how many sales did I get? Now, say you're on Shopify, for instance. You may or may not be. Every platform has a solution for this. I'm just going to give the Shopify version. In Shopify, say you're only running ads on Facebook and you have Shopify, you can see how many sales today did I get from quote unquote social. Those are all your Facebook ad sales. If your Facebook ad sales is say 10 and Facebook comes in and say they got 6, well, you can multiply that 6 up to a certain number. Let's say you get 5 on Facebook. You can double all of your sales numbers because that level of inaccuracy is uniform. So while it isn't accurate, that level of inaccuracy is constant, which means that you are going to be able to say, everywhere where I get a sale, it's really worth 2. And everywhere that doesn't get a sale may or may not be worthwhile. Now, that is a nice short-term solution. It's a Band-Aid. It's not how you're going to fix everything, but it will allow you to understand at a greater level of detail what the results you are getting from Facebook are. Now, between those two things, that Band-Aid is for the existing events that you have. The offline conversion events is going to massively increase the volume of data that you're going to get. In addition to that, there are also other old school methodologies like using UTMs, going to Google Analytics, trying all of that stuff. Understand that UTMs, Google Analytics, at best is 75, 80% accurate because some people have ad blockers in, so the UTMs get stripped. And sometimes people are conducting things inside of Facebook's own browser, so the UTMs never actually even get applied. And that's another issue when it comes to cookies and when it comes to Facebook pixel events firing. There's a whole mess there. The point is, what you need is the best version of the truth that you can. The last thing that I'll say is, one of the biggest issues that I see people doing is they have too many campaigns running, too many ad sets. So like, well, I've got 7 campaigns running, all of them with 3 or 4 ad sets, and every one of them gets 1 or 2 sales a day. What you're telling me is, if you got that down to 1 campaign, you would get a dozen or more conversions on a daily basis, which would give you all the confidence you need to understand what the good move forward is. And I'll tell you this, having done it for year after year after year, ever since optimized CPM environment was introduced, which made the diversification of a complex ad account completely obsolete and more of a liability than an asset, is more money in fewer places basically delivers you the same or better result as a wildly complex system, and it makes it a lot easier to get better and better and better. So all that being said, offline conversion events will get you more data. Number 2, Make sure that you understand the differentiation between what the Facebook UI is showing you and what your internal source of truth is showing you. I should give you an example here inside of Shopify, and I know I'm talking through this really, really fast, but I'm trying to get to everybody's questions. If you want to know more about this stuff, you can find it on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and you can rewatch this video to your heart's content, going slow or going at 50% rate, because I know I talk fast. I'm like the Micro Machines guy, but I do want to make sure that everybody gets addressed, and I am excited about this stuff. Plus, I'm on halfway through this thing of cold brew. And well, that's just the way I am. So I think those are the big things that I would really look at. The last point to what I would get to here with you in this position is when you're consolidating, because remember, simplification is a core element of the Power Five. And look, I was part of the team. We spent millions of dollars to define these best practices across dozens and dozens of verticals for years. Is fewer moving parts, higher level of confidence. So what I would do is I would definitely look into trying to get as few campaigns, build your current effort around as much creative, to have as much of that spend going into a creative testing model as you can. So you have control ads that you know that work against the audiences that you know. That's your legacy situation. That's basically, this is business as usual. This is the absolute worst we're willing to accept. And then moving forward, you're going to creative test by concept against broad. And then as that creative test by concept against broad with dynamic creative starts to beat out your old school stuff, you can start to transition some of your budget over. And my biggest challenge to you is, I think you said the items either cost $300 or it took $300 to sell. Let's just say for the purpose of this conversation, it cost $300 to sell. My biggest challenge to you is get that cost down to $200. That's the number one thing in front of you, is get a simple, stable, day-over-day result and start to reduce the cost of acquisition. That's going to tremendously improve the profit margin that you get. If you want to see how that works out in the nth degree, you can watch actually another video on the YouTube. I did a story time last Wednesday about how I made a brand an extra $1 million a month in profit by reducing Facebook ad spend because we got more and more efficient. And that was a fun thing. That was CMO of a brand that had 5 million unique visitors a month, and I had a 7-figure monthly profit target, and how we walked through all of that. And I'll give you a hint. We were spending $30,000 to $50,000 a day, and I was running all of that on basically 3 or 4 ad sets with 2 or 3 ads, because you don't need more than that. That was our control, and we had a creative testing. Anybody that says you need more than that, you send them my way, and I'll gladly help them understand the lessons that we've been teaching for the last few years, because I think there's a huge gap, and I'm here to help. Anyway, Leo, I know it's late at night. I talked a million miles a minute. You can absolutely grab some sleep, watch this thing in the morning. I hope that helps. Is there something I missed, or is that good for you?
No, it's actually really good. A lot of information, a lot to digest, but
yes,
you covered it all.
I would highly recommend watching it on replay, maybe at half speed.
Okay, will do.
I know it's 4 a.m. for you, man, so take care of yourself.
No, it's all good. I actually absorbed it all. It's all good.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for that. I've got a few more questions, but other people probably want to ask, so you can pop me down.
Yeah, I've got about another 10 minutes here. So I've got one question from YouTube. I got one question from Clubhouse. If you don't mind going back to the audience and we can get back to you, that'd be great. Otherwise, DM me. You've been DMing me on Twitter. I try to respond to every single question. I love it when people ask the questions in the open so I can retweet with the answers and help out other individuals. Because if I can help one person out, it actually helps out hundreds. Because so many people are afraid to ask the question. They don't even know the question they should be asking. Leo, I really appreciate it, man. I'm going to answer a question from YouTube. I'm going to move you back down. And if we got time, I'll bring you back up.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
No problem. All right, YouTube, I see you. Let's get to it. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name because I'm like a white guy from the United States, which means I'm terribly inept when it comes to pronouncing foreign things, because I just wish I was more cultured. But I'm going to read off your question, and from there we are going to move forward. I'm just going to admit my ignorance and just try not to even embarrass myself at this point. It's the best level of respect I can try to deliver is to not be disrespectful. Avoiding the fights that I'm going to lose is the best chance I have in this case. Anyway, your question says, hey, I'm not that active on social media in the past, but now want to be a digital marketer. Can you tell me about the journey? Is it going to be hard for me? Well, I love this question. First off, I highly recommend anybody that can possibly get into this business try. I'll tell you 3 core things, and then we'll get to the piece in Clubhouse, because I see Freddie asked a question, but I was trying to sneak in the answer to Freddie's question in the last one. So to you, number one, 80% of people in this business of buying Facebook ads are bad at their job. And it's not a slight against them. It's not me insulting them. It's that the vast majority of people that learned how to do this learned from somebody that wasn't good. That learned from somebody whose core competency wasn't Facebook ads. And the biggest issue is that a lot of people have been successful in spite of not doing a good job because the clients that they worked with ran good businesses. The number one Facebook hack to making your ad account better is running a good business. If you have a really good business and you care about your customers, your Facebook is going to be stupid easy. Also, Facebook has been stupid easy for people for years. There's a big reason why in 2015, 2016, there was this huge surge of people buying into media because the optimized CPM environment was released, which is what Facebook runs on, where they have the algorithm, right? Where you no longer saw everything in chronological order. And when that happened, it changed the game and made Facebook really, really easy. Since then, a lot of people are prioritizing, this gets to the second part, a lot of people prioritize hard work as a way of seeing success. My number one suggestion to you is think like an engineer. Engineers by trade are inherently lazy. I am inherently lazy. I want to do the least amount of work to get the job done. Now, because Facebook is a machine, it's a factory. The more you get in the way of it doing its job, the worse the result it's going to deliver. Your job is not to work hard. Your job is to empower the machine to do its job for you. Facebook, the algorithm, the Facebook's machine learning, which again has not changed since 2015, 2016. And anybody that tells you otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about, with the exception of the update with iOS 14, just to give us a slightly new bit of a way we optimize our conversion events, which has nothing to do with the internal coding. There's been a couple of updates, like DPA ads were introduced. I was also in the alpha for that. Or CBO. I also defined best practices for creative testing for that. Those are the only real changes. But the way the Facebook algorithm works has not changed in over 5 years. So we know how to succeed and we know how to fail. And one of the biggest things is you can work really, really hard. And you're going to see better and better results. But if your success is directly dependent on the amount of work that you can do, you're never going to be able to scale. And what I mean by this is, say you are delivering $5,000 in revenue and you want to get to $50,000. If that $5,000 requires 8 hours a day, you can't work 80 hours in a day to 10x your business. You have to work smarter, not harder. The Facebook algorithm and the machine learning was designed by people who are really, really smart. For many, many years, hundreds of the world's smartest engineers built a machine that looks at billions of people on millions of websites, 24 hours a day, collating trillions of data points. None of us are smart enough to beat that. So your job is to lean into that machine and really focus on a way of how can I solve this problem as simply as possible. That is going to be the most difficult thing. The last piece that I can give for you is that I'd highly, highly recommend, as a matter of fact, I'll make this bold statement. I don't know any elite level Facebook advertiser who isn't good at Microsoft Excel. Learn spreadsheets, learn Excel, or you are going to struggle. If the number one path to success here is knowing your numbers, you need to get that. So that'd be what I'd recommend. I see that we got 2 more questions coming here from Clubhouse. We got a couple more minutes before I got to hop on to my man Frederick in Germany, because we got to chat. And then I got the Slack chat after that, which is a great thing, by the way. If you ever want to join the Slack, I highly recommend it. Every week we do hour-long weekly screen shares and deep dives. You have access to me 24 hours a day, as well as a huge archive of eBooks, articles, and over 100 hours of searchable video. Highly recommend it. DM me if you want a discount. I think we've got a big thing going on right now. Scour through the social media. You can get the discount code also for my sales guy, for my assistant, and you can save 50% on that. Anyway, with that being said, we have 2 people, and I'm going to try to get you guys in and answered, and we'll get you out the door and happy. And if I can't answer all the questions that you have, please feel free to follow and DM me anywhere that you want to, and I will answer you more in depth there. But with that being said, let's introduce this next person to the stage. Let's see who we got here. All right, is it going to bring you up? Come on, Clubhouse. There you go. All right, please introduce yourself, and if you can say, hey, my name is, and let me know how I can help.
Hey, my name is Manal, and I'm currently a student, also running a small e-commerce brand. So I had like 2 quick questions. They kind of tied into each other.
Sure.
So the first one is I was running like a product for a couple of weeks, and it wasn't like that strong. It wasn't be able to scale past like 1K a day, and now it's like kind of dying off. So should I just move on, or do you recommend a way to like kind of revive the product? And also, I think it was like inconsistent throughout because of the testing strategies that you used to begin with. So how would you recommend testing at like small budgets? And I'm in the clothing niche, by the way.
Gotcha. Love the question, and I'm gonna try to answer it in one very simple format, and also give you a resource that you can reach out to me for that if you want to. I can give you a discount on.
Okay.
Highly recommend. First off, very common problem. Second, I answer this all the time. So I built out resources that I want to talk to everybody. I got the same question a million times, so I wrote down the answer and I made it available for people. Number one is, in order to get a good result on Facebook, you need a good ad. So highly recommend creative testing with dynamic creative. Limit that dynamic creative to 2 or 3 images, 2 or 3 primary text, 2 or 3 headlines. That way you can optimize that dynamic creative and understand what the best post ID from that dynamic creative is, so that you can then magnify your investment into that piece. Second thing, I love the amount of spend that you had. It sounds to me like you were probably too diversified in your efforts. I would spend every single penny on one campaign, 2 or 3 ad sets. The sole purpose of that is, how do I make this week better than last week? It's not about success. It's about improvement. Directional improvement is fundamentally more important than ultimate success, because it's going to get you there. There's the old concept of Kaizen. It 100% applies in here. So I highly recommend you go that route. Your number one objective is to do testing this week, is to start testing in one campaign this week. Your objective next week is to do better than this week. And if you don't have the budget to do that testing for that many weeks, reduce your budget. Understand that you need to get yourself, what kind of runway can you afford? And then from there, make improvements. What you want is directional improvement week over week. That's going to make things better for you. Also understand that the quality of data getting from Facebook right now may or may not be the best. So you need to understand your numbers from an internal source of truth, your Shopify cash register, or whatever it is that your site is built on, WooCommerce, Wix, whatever. Understand what your source of truth revenue is versus how much you spent today. And then every week, get a little bit better. Then it's not a, does this work? It's how long until I need to spend more, because I've already gotten so efficient that my biggest liability to growth is a lack of spend. That's the problem you want to have. That's the problem you can choose to have. That's how you get it. We got a lot of other questions that are mounting up here. So, DM me if you want some more resources on that. I'll gladly steer you in the right direction and make sure you don't have to pay full price. Does that work for you?
Yeah, appreciate it.
No problem, man. Follow me on some social and then DM me, and I will steer you in that direction, my man. And also, you can rewatch this on YouTube so that you can just see at least that piece if you want to go at a slower rate. Thank you very much, man. I got 2 more, and I've got like 2 minutes. So we're going to make this a lightning round. I'm also going to probably just do this again Monday and Tuesday. Just burn through all of this stuff so we can get as much of this. I'm getting married this weekend, so I'm going to be out for 2 weeks. So, I'm going to just try to build up as much of this stuff as I can so that you guys feel confident going into this time. All right. With that being said, we got 2 more. I recognize some of these folks. Let's get through this. We're going to do lightning round style if we can. Come on. I'm hitting the button and then it's loading the profile. There we go. All right. I think I recognize this person. Introduce yourself, my man. Let me know how I can help.
Hello. Hey, Charlie. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How can I help you?
Good. Yeah, let me just get through this really quickly. So, running a lead generation campaign, testing a few things out, testing out the dynamic creative with 4 videos and 4 images. What I want to ask you is, for the actual objective, we set it to lead. However, we have lead on the thank you page, but we want people to go on to submit application. So should we actually be optimizing for lead, or or should we be optimizing for submit application, which is the third page after the thank you page?
I would optimize for as far down the funnel as you can get enough events for Facebook to leave the learning phase.
Right. Okay. So at the start, we should start with submit application as opposed to lead.
If you can get enough for that Facebook ads for that campaign to get out of the learning phase, then yes, no reason to not do it.
Right. Okay.
Just make sure you have enough volume. That's the number one issue.
How do you mean by volume?
Like, can you get enough sales in a day, enough conversion events in a day to leave the learning phase?
Right. That bit I'm not sure of. So that's why I was thinking maybe we should start off with leads, see the ones that then submit, and then start the campaign again. This time, seeing as we have a pixel that has some submit applications, and then do it with submit application at that point.
I hear you. I might try it the other way around, just because if you're going to try to get people, if you want window shoppers, it's going to be hard for you to make money. If you get buyers, it's easier to scale up. And if buyers is not efficient enough, you can always just try to get better window shoppers and then work on your post-click journey. It's one way or the other. I'm a bit more aggressive in that fashion, but there's no right or wrong answer. It's totally dependent on your budget and your ability to convert.
Gotcha. All right. Much appreciated, my man.
No problem, man. I love seeing you here every time, man. No problem. All right, we got one more person, and I'm going to get to him, and then we got to hop off. I got a man in Germany ready to chat. All right, let's see. Whoop. Cancel. No, wait, what's going on here? I hit the wrong button. All right, hold on a second. Move to audience. There we go. I almost ended the room by accident. That would have been traumatic. We have somebody ready to ask a question. All right, one last question. Here we go. Please introduce yourself. Let me know how I can help. Let's try to make this happen quick. Let's do it.
Hi, Charlie. First and foremost, congratulations.
Thank you.
From all of us, I guess. And my questions is, what are the three common mistakes people make when they go out in this journey on their own?
Love it. Great question, man. That is the perfect question to end this with. So problem number one is people, problem number one is people don't price themselves appropriately. And what I mean by that is, do you want work? Or do you want a price, or do you want to, I always try to start at a lower price point so that I can get customers. Find out how much work can you do a week, fill up your calendar, and raise your price with each additional customer. I started out at $10 an hour, and now it's several $1,000s a month to get a once a week call. That took a while, but I would rather work and get good and make mistakes and deal with all of the things that I need to deal with, instead of saying, well, I'm worth this, and I'll just sit on the couch and suffer until I get enough people to pay me. Part of the reason that I got really, really good is that I work with a ton of different people. Number two, I think people make the mistake of trying to deliver success right away. And what I mean by that as being a mistake is, it is far more important right away for you to understand where the opportunity lies and what success can look like, so you can start to build towards that. You can either prioritize towards short wins or long-term success. And then the last thing that I highly recommend everybody learn, or the mistakes that I see a lot of people make, is that they view their contribution as just Facebook, or just email, or just YouTube. If you really want to get good, understand the entire business, total revenue, and then how much of that is from me, and how can I do best to lift the overall performance of my client's business. The longest running relationships I have are not because I taught the person how to work Facebook well. It's because we got that business to be more and more successful. And sometimes that's more money on Facebook, sometimes that's less. Sometimes that means Facebook runs at a lower overall efficiency because it empowers some other metric. Remember, Facebook side efficiency generally comes at the cost of other channels. And you need to understand what is the best mix between them. So know your numbers, undercharge over deliver, and really understand what success looks like and get your clients on board to understand that you are building for long-term success, not a short-term win. If they can't afford you for long-term success, then that is a business where that client is going to leave you very quickly anyway, because if they have to rely on Facebook for their business to succeed, when their business fails, because it will, it's not your fault. But hey, take the money where you can get it. Anyway, I hope that's helpful, man. I'm a couple minutes late towards a meeting, but I did want to try to get all this up. Did that help you?
Charlie, what we can do is take this discussion offline. I know you're a couple of minutes away from your meeting, and we'd not like to hold you from that discussion that you're having in Germany.
DM me, man. Follow me on anything and direct message me.
And maybe, exactly. And
we
can have a short conversation on this. All right?
I would love it. Well, thank you very much, my man. I got to hop on a thing, and then I got to hop on another thing, and then I got a day about me. Anyway, I hope you all are well. I'm going to be definitely coming back and doing this again several times this week. So follow me on Clubhouse if you're here, or subscribe on YouTube or whatever else. Make sure you don't miss it. I'm going to try to do this any morning that I can this week until I'm done. I want to do at least one more, if not two. Anyway, with that, I got to go. Once again, my name is Charlie. Check things out on FacebookDisruptor.com. And if you want a discount to anything that you see because you made it this far, please feel free to just DM me. I'll gladly make sure you don't pay full price for anything. And until then, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you on the internet.